My name is Daniel Gardner, you're watching Chasing Cars, and if you're thinking about buying a Tesla Model Y, then keep watching because I'm going to tell you why you should be definitely thinking about this car as well. If you like today's video, hit like and hit subscribe, and maybe even consider ringing that bell icon so you know whenever another quality review like this one goes live. There have been plenty and there will be many more because I'm spending a lot of time in Europe and driving some very interesting cars. But today, speaking of interesting cars, I'm in this, the all-new Cupra Tavascan, and it is a hugely compelling all-electric SUV with range of up to around about 500 kilometers, and more importantly, every single version comes in under LCT.
Chasing Cars, honest reviews of your next car.
Brought to you by
The Cupra family is growing rapidly, with a new model joining the family pretty much by the month, it seems. So the question I want to ask is the Tavascan feeling and worthy of being the flagship of that growing family? With models like the Terramar on the way and the Raval, this vehicle has to feel a little bit more special than a range that already feels pretty special. Early signs suggest it definitely can, and although I'm really impressed with virtually every Cupra interior I've ever seen, this goes a step further. Just look at it. That is one of the coolest dash designs I have ever seen. And it doesn't just go over the top for the sake of it. It's actually quite elegant and beautiful. And it does that in a number of ways. First of all, it's quite simple in the materials it uses. There's no complex stitching, there's no cumbersome or sort of fussy materials with complex patterns in them. There's this geometric design that runs through everything. That's a Cupra bit of a calling card and a signature, but it's simple and elegant. But the way that it flows into both sides of the car and grows almost organically down the side and from this central pillar, it almost looks like Gaudi designed it, the, funnily enough, Spanish architect. And I don't know if that's intentional, but Cupra does speak of its Spanish heritage and its links to Barcelona an awful lot. Coincidence? I think not. The materials it uses as well, this rather unusual fabric or rubberized material, I'm not even sure what it is. It feels, again, almost organic, like it grew there. Same materials on the dash, high quality leather on the steering wheel. That layer is like nothing else. As I say, that's one way this car stands out from the rest of the range and screams flagship, hero model. Then there's other ways it stands out too. Look at that central screen, 15 inches. That is the biggest screen in the Cupra family. And it's not just for show, it works beautifully as well. You've got lovely, fast acting touch screen. The resolution and refresh rate is fantastic. It doesn't get very hot, which is awesome. I think that's probably a real good energy saving feature there, but it looks fantastic. Loads of features, easy to access, intuitive. It took me virtually no time at all to feel well at home. And that's a key difference to the first infotainment system that Cupra launched. It felt a little bit underbaked. Not so here. Next to it, you'll notice a little screen, which is just for the driver. It's the instrument cluster, and it's cute and condensed and lovely. You can have two different views which aren't particularly different in there, but it doesn't matter because that gives you all the information you need and all the other stuff in that huge 15-inch screen. Next up is something you probably can't see from there. You have to be in the driver's seat. One of the biggest, if not the biggest, HUD head-up display I've ever seen. It shares that with the Born, and that's okay because technology should be shared across models and lines. It is absolutely humongous. It's big enough to allow augmented instructions, like when you're using the navigation. And also when you're driving along, it can highlight the road marking if it thinks you're getting too close to it to really bring it to your attention. It works absolutely beautiful. I knew that augmented navigation was coming. Previously, we've had it in screens here, but that's the first time I've seen it actually projected over the image you're seeing. And I love it. Sennheiser, high-end sound system. Loads of technology. I've got a wireless charging thing down here, 2 USB-C ports. Storage is also very well spoken for as well. Because of this lovely flying buttress design, I've got loads of space underneath it and more down here. I've got a cubby in there that's big enough to accommodate almost my whole arm. Don't believe me? Never doubt me again. This is a very, very premium cabin, but Cupra doesn't want to be known as premium, it just wants to be known as value. And honestly, you're getting all this for the money. How much? We'll talk in a little bit later. In the second row is where some brands typically start to cut a few corners and costs to keep the overall price of the model down. But because this is the flagship, the Tavascan, that is not the case. All of the materials that I enjoyed so much up the front continue through into the second row, and it feels just as premium and luxury back here as the front row. For example, the copper highlights, which are everywhere in the front row, also continue through into the second row on the door here. Also that lovely kind of synthetic material. We've got a combination of suede and almost neoprene kind of material back here for the upholstery, same as up front, and that lovely material where you can see Cupra fabric glistening through that blue synthetic suede. Works really nicely and just makes the second row feel really nice and posh too. I've also got 2 more USB-C ports. I've got heated seats per side, and we get our own climate control panel. So it does feel very much like the flagship of the range back here. Not everything in the Cupra range gets such good treatment in the second row. I also have my favorite feature of any second row, a central armrest with cup holders, and we get load through for long items. But you also get folding seats as well, so there's lots of storage options. Finally, I want to talk about the space, because back here it is really accommodating for big people and little people alike. Look how nice that window line is, so my view out of the window is very nice, and also the C-pillar isn't too intrusive, so if I look to my left I've actually got a reasonable view. Plenty of headroom, plenty of knee room for a lanky thing like me. So it's comfortable back here as well as feeling quite luxurious. So a big win for the second row as well. The important thing to note about the Cupra Tavascan is it's not simply trying to be a Cupra Born that's been upscaled by a few percent. It feels very different. Yes, there are family similarities throughout, but the important thing is it feels very much like its own model. And that becomes immediately apparent when you hit the road. So where the Born is kind of small and very purposeful in its intent, the Tavascan is a little bit more relaxed. It's a slightly more comfortable cruiser. It's arguably a little quieter in the cabin, and even though it's rolling on wheels that are a whole inch larger than the Born's, it somehow manages to be a little bit more composed and relaxing. Until you don't want it to be anymore. And then it has more of that classic Cupra driving focus. This version is the top of the range, the twin motor 250 kilowatt, but honestly the reason this car is quick is not the power, it's the torque. They haven't actually been official about exactly what that torque figure is, but the nice thing is it's able to handle it really nicely as well, and it's a bit bigger, so on some longer sweeping bends like this one, it just settles in. It's a little bit more predictable and approachable, maybe. Exactly what you'd expect from a car with a longer wheelbase and a little bit more heft to carry around. But it really hides its weight admirably. Performance, absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. 5.5 seconds 0 to 100, which is ever so slightly quicker than the Born VZ, but that's because this has all-wheel drive and a traction advantage. Chucking into some of these tighter corners, you can feel the heft of this car. There's a little bit more body roll out of that corner than I was expecting, but it all brings a smile to your face when you hit that E pedal and accelerate out of corners with tons of confidence. You can get the gas on, gas in inverted commas, from the middle of the corner because that all drive system is sorting it all out for you. Confidence inspiring, fun, quick, and that's before I've even pressed the Cupra button. You get a different throttle profile, so it feels a little bit more urgent when you want to accelerate. It feels like the steering has got a little bit more weight to it. And that's one of my favorite things about this car, is that no matter how you're driving it, and no matter what mode you're in, it's always got this really sweet steering feel. Plenty of feel. It doesn't feel synthetic. A lot of electric cars can have this kind of dull, kind of synthetic feel that doesn't feel anything like a hydraulic or even mechanical steering setup. This though, it just feels very car-like, and that's where this car really excels. Is it's a big electric SUV that feels like a small regular hatchback. The one thing it doesn't have though is disc brakes all round, and that's another similarity to the Born, which to me is a little bit surprising, even more so in a car like this that weighs even more. It doesn't have any problem managing its weight in one big long brake, but my concern would be repeated braking. If you're on a hot day on a twisty mountain road and you're hitting the picks frequently, I wonder whether those rear drums would get a little bit too much heat into them to really handle some aggressive driving. But anyway, on a nice cool Barcelona day like today, no problems whatsoever. Once you're done having your hair down, you flick it back into a highway driving mode and the Tavascan cruises on absolutely beautifully, just like no enthusiastic driving ever happened at all. I really like the ride quality. It has got a real multi-purpose personality. If you want to have some fun on a twisting road like this, it'll do it all day long. But honestly, where this car excels is just the relaxing side to its nature. The one thing though I really don't like about its styling, on the outside it looks fantastic, but when you jump inside, that A-pillar, which creates some of that really front forward, really dynamic look, actually gets right in the way. Right when you're doing cornering like this, you really need that that view down here. And unfortunately, that is another trait carried over from the Bourne, which has got a similarly flat angle A-pillar, which gets right in the way. And when we had some rain earlier today, the drained rain from the windscreen gathers there and kind of makes that visibility problem even worse. Jump into something like a Terramar though, and you've got a much more regular A-pillar angle, and you get a much better visibility out of that corner. You might be one of the many people who are thinking of putting a Tesla Model Y on your driveway, and I can understand why. The Tesla offers an awful lot for the money, but ask yourself what you're not getting. This car, the Tavascan, is nowhere near as quick as the performance version of the Tesla Model Y, but in virtually every other way it does a job better. It's more comfortable, the steering is nicer, the build quality feels more sophisticated, and the styling on the outside doesn't look like an embarrassed beluga whale. So this for me is the pick, unless you want outright drag racing capability, which, let's be honest, for most people you don't really need. When I first jumped into the Cupra Tavascan, I had two questions to answer. The first one is, does it feel like the halo of the Cupra range? And after just a short time in it, the answer is absolutely yes. It has differentiation from everything else in the Cupra range while holding together its core values. It looks great, it's sporty, but somehow with its size and the quality and its design, it sits proudly at the top of the range. And the second question is this: should you be considering this car over a Tesla Model Y? And the answer to that is also yes. And that comes down to the pricing. Not only is it fast, it looks cool, it's got tons of space, and it's a really, really genuinely enjoyable driver's car, it starts at around about $65,000. Yes, that's for the entry-level version, but even this, the top of the range, 250 kilowatt, twin motor, all-wheel drive version, costs under $80,000, and that means it sneaks in under LCT, even it's the Halo model. And that is why you should absolutely be considering this car if you're thinking about buying a Tesla Model Y. From the beautiful Spanish countryside, thanks for watching Chasing Cars. Like and subscribe and all the things.